Joining with Darryl and Tracy is the chair of behavioral health at Liberty University's College of Osteopathic Medicine, host of the Dr. Linda Mintle Show on the Faith Radio Network, and the best-selling author of 19 books on living a healthier life. Her latest is called We Need to Talk. So, okay, let's talk right now. Would you please welcome the relationship doctor, Dr. Linda Mintle. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
I know that you know the strawberries, but you also heard them when they were talking before. Why is it that so many people are struggling with addiction? And is it really that we have more people struggling, or are we just hearing about it more?
I do think we have more people when you're looking at the numbers. And part of that is we live in a culture, and you've talked about this many times on your show, where pleasure is the thing. We don't want to feel pain. We want to escape. We want to avoid. We just want to feel good. So that is a huge factor in the number of people that are beginning addictions. But a lot of people will use for different reasons. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's growing up in a family. You're 8 times more likely to have an addiction if you grow up in a family that has an addiction.
Talking about
right.
Is. Yep.
Right, so it's generational, like you were talking about, and more is obviously you learn it from watching it. And then there are the people that have a lot of internal pain that is part of your story, both of your stories, where you talk about things like growing up in a home with physical abuse, which was your case, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, violence in a home, mental illness in a home. One of the big things that we really need to be thinking about is with people being so busy and so stressed, a lot of people will turn to addiction, not just alcohol and drugs, but even shopping and gambling and video gaming and all kinds of other things. So there are multiple ways into an addiction.
So help educate us. Is an addiction primarily a disease, or is it primarily a lifestyle and a choice?
So it's both, if you think about it, because obviously somebody doesn't come and force you to have a drink, or doesn't usually, that's not usually the case. Or they don't say, you have to take this drug. So instead, you make the choice at the beginning of this to take a drink, to take a drug, to do something that's addictive. Now, what happens when you start to do it, the problem is the brain begins to change over time with repeated use of a substance. And so what happens to people is their brain actually rewires. And there's a part of the brain that is a part that memorizes things. It memorizes where you were when you took that drink, who you were with, the smell, all kinds of visual things. The brain is very good at remembering cues that were associated with a substance. And then there's a part of the brain, and then there's a feel-good part of the brain. So we call it the James Brown Center when we're teaching, because I feel good is what the brain says, right? With that addiction pathway, it's called the reward pathway. So what happens to people is that reward pathway gets real excited, it gets the I feel good, it's going good, and then there's this part of the brain that we call the sheriff. And it's supposed to take charge, but what happens when people repeatedly have an addiction is the sheriff cannot put the brakes on. So it is a disease, it is a chronic disease, because the treatment is you have to starve all that neural pathway in the brain to get it back to a different way and change the brain again.
When Dr. Mintle was talking, Tracy, Darryl, did that sound familiar? Did that ring true to you guys?
Absolutely, it does. And there are different reasons. I came from a loving household and where I was taught faith and love. Honestly, I did not embrace the faith that my parents taught me. I was separated from God. I was enslaved to sin. I was not walking according to the ways of God. So I was drawn to excitement, got mixed up with the wrong people, and the next thing I knew, all these years later, I'm losing custody of my children, and my life completely fell apart.
And Dr. Mintle, what you've just described a moment ago was that as that pattern began to develop, the whole brain started remembering this new lifestyle, not the home that she grew up in, not the values you grew up in. You started replacing, it's like having a tape recorder and erasing what was on the tape and putting new stuff on top of that.
That's exactly right. And it goes from impulsive at the beginning to compulsive, which is why we consider this a chronic disease, because of the compulsive behavior, and the brain becomes compulsive for that drug or that substance. It will override that thinking part of the brain so that you're not thinking rationally and you're giving up your children before you know it, and all these awful consequences happen to you.
There's a great, great message in Darryl's book, Don't Give Up on Me. And I don't know even how to say how important that is, because sometimes people, maybe they go through rehab or they get some help and then they relapse. So, Darryl, what is the key of this whole message? Don't give up on me.
Well, the key is people should never give up on people. People should never point fingers at people with addiction problem. You can love them, but not tolerate, their behavior. And we need to love them right where they're at because, first of all, we didn't create each other. God created all of us. And it's up to God to have the last decision over our life. And we need to be loving people and caring for people and embracing people right in the midst of their brokenness because we don't know their story, we don't know their pain, we don't know where they come from. Like I said before, I was rich, but people didn't know my pain. I can hit home runs and win championships, hold up trophies, live behind the community gates, but I had nothing. I just had a bunch of stuff and a bunch of fame. But inside, I needed to be healed. And there's only one person can heal us, and that's Jesus. And we need to get back to that, bringing the cross back to people so they can be liberated and redeemed and restored by the blood of the Lamb. All this other stuff that we talk about and we point fingers at people's situations because they struggle, we don't know where they truly come from. So we are people who need to show love because God loved us first.
Darryl, I want to tell you something. You hit a lot of home runs in your baseball career. But, brother, tonight, you sent one right out of the park.
Thank you.
What a home run. You and Tracy, Dr. Mintle, I want to thank you, every one of you, for being here to talk about this very incredibly important subject. And I know that we never can cover it all in our brief time. So to learn more about Darryl and Tracy Strawberry's ministry and the rehab program, and to get their great new books, Don't Give Up on Me, visit them online, strawberryministries.org, strawberryministries.org. It's there on your screen. And you can even invite them to speak in your community. After tonight, you're going to get a lot of invitations. And for help with just about any problem, check out Dr. Linda Mentle's books, including her latest, We Need to Talk, at drlindahelps.com. Great. Thank you guys so much for being here. What a timely message for all of us to hear. God bless you.